On Garbage Time Fantasy Football, third place means nothing. You're only the second loser. It's time for Garbage Time. Guys, welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. We hope you enjoyed our non-live cold takes video that JJ released on Monday. That said, we had some pretty comical stuff in that. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
Good. Finally, slowly healing over the heartbreak that was the Patriots-Bills game.
Yeah, what was your emotional state Saturday night? I didn't hear much from you.
Not good. I was in a dark place.
Well, what's your thoughts going into this weekend?
Well, I'm happy just to be able to watch some football, not really have a horse in the race, except for my bets that have now become legal in New York State.
Yeah, you don't have to go to any shady sheds to go and get your bets through anymore, right?
Don't have to think about fantasy football a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a laid-back weekend.
Yeah, so like we said, guys, this is a fantasy football show. We're going to go over the news that you can go into your DFS because in some format, that's still fantasy football. But tonight we wanted to focus on a special topic, which is league rules. This is the time of the year where you can consider that for your leagues before you get into your league meetings of what you can vote in and what you can't vote in. Before we get into that, though, obviously we want to get into tonight's news. We have DFS lineups for the weekend if anybody's interested in doing that. And like I said, we have the rules. So with no further ado, let's get into the news.
News updates.
Guys, and if you like this trash that we put out here for the show, you can like us on here on YouTube, obviously, and subscribe to the show. You can find our shows also at www.garbagetimeft.com. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts too. We are on Tunein, Iheartradio, Spotify, Apple, Google, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. And Brian, I believe you have an MMA podcast coming out again this week, correct?
Yes, I can confirm 100%. I can 100% confirm for the first time in a while there will absolutely be an MMA show up tomorrow. I don't know if Casey will be joining us, but it will definitely be myself and JJ.
Yeah, so it's not bullshit. We actually have another episode coming back out tonight. So our first little bit of news tonight is Derrick Henry is rolling over people in practice, according to news reports, and the Bengals are going to be missing 2 defensive linemen this week. What do you think this is going to do for Derrick Henry's outlooks this week? And do you like him in DFS this week, Ryan?
I do. It said he participated in contact practice. No issues there. He's kind of a wait and see though. But I think he's like, what's he even going for in DFS right now?
I believe his current price is $7,500.
Okay, yeah. So it's a little bit of a gamble. You might want to hold off on clicking submit on that DFS until you know for sure. But everything's pointing in the right direction.
Or hedge your bets and adjust it into the weekend. I think you're fine submitting it, and you're allowed to change your lineups after, so you should be fine on that front. Leonard Fournette did not practice on Wednesday. He's dealing with a hamstring. What's your thoughts on Fournette's injury?
Yeah, that's obviously it's twofold. It can hurt Fournette's value, but then it just kind of boosts the stock of Ronald Jones. They're pretty much head to head on prices. I think Fournette's 5,700, Ronald Jones is 5,600. So if Fournette does get ruled out or whatever, you could pivot pretty easily with that.
Yeah.
But definitely look for Ronald Jones to have some solid value if Fournette's definitely out.
Okay, and Kevin Colbert says Dwayne Haskins has a chance to get the starting job should Big Ben not come back next year. Also, there's a report out that Mason Rudolph is the favorite for that job. Is that a bunch of bullshit, or are the Steelers going to be drafting a quarterback in the offseason or bringing in a veteran?
I don't know. I know I don't like either of those options. Neither one of those is good. And it's unfortunate because they have some solid productive wide receivers there. You got Claypool, Johnson, Freiermuth. Well, Freiermuth's a tight end, but nonetheless.
Yeah, I feel like it really does no justice to the weapons that they have there, and they really should
No.
be looking at other options. An interesting report that came in, and maybe they could throw their horse in this race, is that Minnesota could be looking to trade Kirk Cousins. Report came out. Yeah, kind of interesting. The only issue with Cousins is he's kind of got an albatross of last year on his contract. The teams that are reported to be interested in him are the Broncos, the Panthers, and the Steelers, as stated. Historically, the Steelers don't make trades for quarterbacks, even on the higher end of veterans, but they haven't been in this position 15 years anyway. The Panthers,
almost 20. I think it's been 18 years.
Yeah, incredible. The Panthers definitely can't eat that contract, I think, because they're still eating Sam Darnold's contract, so I don't see them as an option. The Broncos are obviously an option. I think they may feel the most pressure out of any of these teams to actually make the move. But it's interesting that the Steelers and Broncos could be jockeying for a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, say if the top options out there are thought to be out there, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, aren't potential options for them.
Yeah, I still see Denver going hard at Rodgers, but I could be wrong. Wilson, I get more and more suspicious that he's staying with Seattle, but we will see.
What is Kirk Cousins' fantasy outlooks on a team like Denver's, you think?
I think it's just middle of the road. Like, he's going to be the typical game manager. He won't turn it over on you, but I don't think he's going to be like a top 10 or anything.
Okay. And DeAndre Hopkins is expected to be healthy within the month. Do you still like his outlooks long-term for, say, Dynasty for the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think so. And we saw what that offense looks like if he's not in there. So clearly he's a very vital piece of it. How old is he now? Like 32?
I believe he's 29. Yeah, no, he's
29.
Yeah, he's not in his 30s yet.
Oh yeah, I'm still in on him for Dynasty then for sure.
Yeah, there's another 32-year-old on that team. His name's AJ Green.
Why do I feel like DeAndre Hopkins has been playing forever?
Probably because he was on the same team as Larry Fitzgerald, and then he got traded from Houston.
That's probably
that'll prematurely age you, I think.
Yeah, you go to dog years after that.
Yeah, no, he's almost been as long in the league as it took you to make that take after we sabotaged you twice in that cold takes episode.
You don't know till you've been there. All right, that threw me. I was acting like I was actually picking for like my fantasy team, like it actually somehow had some impact, but
like it was going to have some long-term relevance on you.
But you got to practice how you play. All right, if you practice like crap, you don't make crap picks when it counts.
Well, then what happened to the Patriots this past week? And I thought you guys always practice well.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Jones needs a wide receiver one that's not an undrafted wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar was clearly a huge bust. Jonnu Smith, I don't want to call him a bust yet. I think we just got to figure out how to incorporate him in the offense more. The defense is what really shocked me. I know we had a couple. I think Mills was out, but still, like, that was insane.
So you're saying you want a Mike Williams or Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper in the offseason?
Yeah, but there's some solid prospects, wide receivers coming up in the draft too. I mean, I think it's going to be heavy in the beginning though, so they're going to go pretty quick, but we'll see.
Give us some names. Who do you like?
I haven't done a ton of research on them, but there was one. Hold on.
And guys, while he's looking that up, please join the Heckling Fandom and like and subscribe to this video too, while I prolong and let Ryan look up his stats.
Yeah, let me do my Googling. All right. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. I can't find the name, so I don't know.
That's okay.
I haven't looked at college football at all. So it will be interesting to see what happens, but I'm already excited for the draft, and it hasn't even been the Super Bowl. So
I know. All right. So with that, we'll move on to our next little bit of news then too. Aaron Jones is a full participant in practice. Do you expect him to be a big part of the Packers offense this weekend?
Yeah.
Or do you think that's going to fall into AJ Dillon's purview?
No, I think Aaron Jones will get a decent amount of work if he's back and healthy.
Okay. Also, Jay Gruden interviewed for the Panthers offensive coordinator position. Is this interesting from the fact that they may be looking to run the ball and they have a few weapons there, or are you not interested in anything they do for that offense until they change the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, and even Christian McCaffrey with the injuries and things like that, I don't even put a ton of faith in drafting him. Like, I think I'm going to steer pretty clear of that.
Yeah.
I did spend a first round pick on him in one league, and it pretty much killed my season.
I think it's killed anyone the last 2 years.
Yeah, and just I think the Jets must feel a little bit vindicated because at first it was looking like Darnold was going to be good, and it was just the Jets that were the problem. But then Darnold showed through, and it just didn't work out.
And Darnold's the problem. All right, so tell me what is going to go on with Jimmy G this weekend. According to reports, he's got a shoulder sprain heading into Sunday. Also, teammate Elijah Mitchell is limited with a knee injury. What's your thoughts on these 49ers injuries going into this weekend, and how can they affect DFS lineups?
Yeah, it still really hurt the team. I did read that he won't be 100%. He is expected to play. You can disagree with me, but I just feel like anybody that just increases Debo's value. If Jimmy G can't be throwing the ball around as much, if Elijah Mitchell's banged up, I just see a ton of Debo type stuff.
Okay, and what's your thoughts on Brandon Ayuk and DFS lineups then?
I actually really liked him. I actually threw him in my lineup that I just made. He's had solid back-to-back games. I don't think he was as productive as what you had hoped, but
definitely not.
14 points in week 16, 13 and 17, 19 and 18, and then just put up 11. Right now he's sitting at 5,200. So pretty good value there. I'm realizing in these playoff games, all the players are so expensive. So you really have to do a good job of picking who you're going to play.
Yeah, man, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. There's also two more things I wanted to get to too. What's your thoughts? The Bears sniffing around Brian Flores. He seems to be the early favorite for that job right now, but he seems to be the early favorite everywhere. Is he going to be the first coach that's hired by someone?
I think so. I think the fact that everyone was just blown away that Miami let him go, and B, how well he did with Miami and turning that team around. I think the biggest hang up I'm reading is that he's asking for full control. He wants general manager control.
Yeah, I don't know if teams want to go that direction. Bill O'Brien tried that, didn't work well.
I mean, they did that with Jay Gruden. The Raiders got burned. The Texans tried it with Bill O'Brien. They got burned. So I could foresee why teams would be very hesitant to give a coach that level of control.
Okay, and I want to know if this is smoke or if there's actually something here. Howie Roseman says Jalen Hurts has earned the starting job in 2022 for the Eagles. However, they have 3 first-round picks heading into this year. Do you believe the report, or do you think this is just an early report of him trying to lay a smokescreen?
No, I think they continue with Jalen Hurts. I really do. I'm not sure in the draft who they would get that could come in and perform better right out of the draft. So I think it's Jalen Hurts' job.
Okay, and one more thing. I said 2, but it's actually 3. Let's talk about the elephant in the room real quick. What the fuck happened to the Cowboys this weekend?
Oh my God.
I need your opinion on that last play of the game. And are the Cowboys going to do anything to remedy this, or are they just going to continue to choke?
I thought that was I was expecting a shot to the end zone because that's what would make sense in that situation.
With 14 seconds?
Doesn't take a lot of time. You might get a pass interference call, but the run right up the middle, and then you got to give the ball to the ref right away, not to your center to then put the ball down because of that stupid rule where the ref has to touch the ball and put it down and get out of the way. Like that was a mess, and I know Dallas is mad at the refs over it, and there were some other shady play calls in that game as well as other games. But ultimately, it's on them. That was, and you gotta be mindful of the clock when you're doing a play like that. He should have went down sooner.
I don't think he should have taken out to begin with. He should have taken a shot at the sides. I understand that they were covering the ends, but the middle of the field really wasn't an option. You had to take a shot at a spot where your receivers are going to get in and get out of bounds. There was no time to make that long of a run and then hope to get the hike off.
And it would be different if it was for like you're just trying to get in field goal range.
Mhm.
But what was the plan after that? Because Matt's they would have what 2 seconds.
Yeah. They I don't unless they had a two-play set driven up. I mean, you practice things like that and you have things ready for it, but I don't think you plan on your quarterback taking off with 14 seconds left to go in the game and then
They
just
probably could
hiking
have
the
done
ball
like
right after. It's
they
just
probably
street ball at that point.
they could have done like 3 shots to the end zone in that amount of time. Like
Yeah, no, it was just weird. Don't get me wrong, I take a sick passion out of this happening to the Cowboys because Cowboys fans are very passionate, and you need to put them back in their place when they get this excited. So, with that thought, let's get into the DFS lineups of the week. All right, so also gambling did open up in New York too, so I have some interesting lines I wanted to go over this week and get your opinions on them, what you thought of them
heck
too,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
first, let's do the DFS lineups if you're cool with that.
sounds good.
All right, so for my DFS lineup this week, this includes all of the games for this weekend, $50,000 budgets through DraftKings. I'm starting with quarterback Josh Allen at 7,600. I am drinking the Kool-Aid after his insane performance last week of beating the shit out of Ryan's team. Played a perfect game, scored a touchdown on every drive they were in. Unbelievable performance. You're not going to beat a performance like that. They played well against the Chiefs last time when they went into Arrowhead and won that game. So I am starting with Josh Allen at 7,600 because he's top dog this week and I'm taking him. Next, I am investing heavily again in Derrick Henry at 7,500. So I believe that he's going to come back similar to what Cam Akers did last week and be even more dominant. He's going up against the Bengals, who are missing a lot of defensive linemen who went out to injuries last week. So I think Derrick Henry is a fantastic play this week. Next, I'm going with the one that came back last week and is a decent value too, Cam Akers at 5,500. I honestly believe he's established himself as the starting running back of the Rams after his dominant performance last week too. Don't get me wrong. I know they have Sony Michel there, but they're going to want to get the best players on the field. And in a cold weather game, Cam Akers is the better player for that game. So look for them to keep Aaron Rodgers up the field and get Cam Akers some work. So I'm playing with him at a decent value at 5,500. Next, I'm going with the hybrid wide receiver / running back, Deebo Samuel, which is at 7,700. So Deebo, good week last week, 20 points for DFS. As I predicted, they used him as a running back, and I think the 49ers will do the same thing again. And my apologies, Cam Akers is playing against Tampa, not against Aaron Rodgers. So regardless, they'll try to keep him out the field. But Deebo is going to play in a similar game says to Cam Akers. They will try to hand the ball off to him because he's a multifaceted, talented player, and they're going to try to control the clock in that weather. So Deebo Samuel for 7,700. Next, I'm going with wide receiver T. Higgins at 5,700. Had to spend a little bit less here, but T. Higgins had shown throughout the season that he has weeks that he explodes. He's going up against Tennessee, who has a bad secondary, better front seven. So look for the Bengals to expose that. So T. Higgins, I think, is a decent value here at 5,700. Next, I'm going with Allen Lazard because I need to get a little bit cheaper here. Aaron Rodgers is always a decent option for any wide receiver. I just hope they can play well in the cold. So Allen Lazard at 4,400. Next, I'm going with Rob Gronkowski again because him and Tom are just Mr. Playoff. Rob Gronkowski got in the end zone again last week. Look for him to do it again this week. So I am playing him at 5,800. I am playing a similar lineup to what I did last week too, going 2 tight ends to keep this cheaper because I'm paying up for a premium at the very top heavy positions. CJ Uzama at 3,400 has the potential to get in the end zone too. Bad secondary for the Titans, so I think that's a pretty decent option there. And I've got absolutely no money for my defense, so I am going with the 49ers against Aaron Rodgers at 2,300. I had to punt on the position, didn't have a choice, so let's go Niners this weekend.
Yeah, I I love a lot of your picks. When I go through mine, you're gonna see a lot of overlap with us, which isn't surprising. So I will jump right into mine. I leaned towards Buffalo a little bit just because Kansas City's defense sucks. I mean they dominated last week, but they still put up allowed 21 points to the Steelers, who is I would argue is not nearly as explosive as an offense as Buffalo. So I took Josh Allen at 7,600. Like you said, he showed out against Kansas City earlier in the season, put up almost 40 points. coming off a 42-point game this past week.
Yep.
Next up is a little bit risky, but I was a fan of him throughout the season and held on to him or picked him up in some leads because he really came on towards the end. I'm going with Devin Singletary. I think he's finally cemented himself as the RB1 in that offense. Had 81 yards and 2 touchdowns against New England. Had a touchdown against the Jets, another 2 touchdowns against Atlanta before that. So he's really getting hot at the right time. So I took Devin Singletary. My second running back, I went with the same pick as you. I took Cam Akers. Looked awesome this past weekend.
He did.
His first game back, I think he only got about 5 carries. This last week, they got him 17 carries, so they're definitely upping his usage. I see it going up even more so after this week. I think you could see him in the 20s. So I really liked him at 5,500. Next, I took A.J. Brown at 6,200. Bengals don't have a bad secondary, but A.J. Brown has had some solid games the past 3 weeks.
So good secretaries, but bad secondary.
Right. Something like that. So took him at 6,200. Next, I think this is a pretty good value. I took Odell Beckham at 5,300.
Okay.
Has 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games. So pretty touchdown dependent. You gotta hope he finds the end zone, but I do like his value there. I think teams are really focusing on Cooper Kupp, and that's opening the door for Odell a bit. Next, I went Brandon Ayuk. He's been very consistent these past couple of weeks. Like I said when we talked about him a couple of minutes ago. At tight end, I've spent a lot of money, so I had to cut back in some place. So I went with CJ Uzomah.
Yep.
Like you said, he's going to be very touchdown dependent. You're going to hope they get him in the red zone. I don't think he'll win you the week, but he probably won't lose it for you either. Next, like you said, and like I said when we were talking about the 49ers, to Deebo Samuel. I think he's going to get a lot of work in this game, especially with Jimmy G banged up and Elijah Mitchell banged up. So I think it could be the Deebo show. And finally, I did have some money left for my defense, so I did take the Packers against the 49ers because you do have a banged up Jimmy G, you have a banged up running back, and I think the Packers defense could perform well.
I think you have a very nice balanced DFS lineup for the week. I wanted to touch on specifically Cam Akers again really quick. We've mentioned him a few times in the show already. Where do you see him going next year in snake drafts? And what do you like for his outlooks for Dynasty next year?
For Dynasty, I love it. And I know when he got that injury, I was guilty of, his career is over. Fade him. I was all in on Darrell Henderson. I thought he would just end up being the guy. And then that did not happen. It happened for a few weeks. I think Cam Akers goes right back to being the running back 1. And I think you could take him really early. I don't know, like first, but I feel like second or third.
Come on, give us that cold take nice and early that JJ challenged you in the video. You can't take him in the first round next year?
I'll take him in the second. I'll take him early second for sure.
So no first round for Cam Akers yet?
No, I'm keeping my typical profile of never going too extreme and being hard to pin down on a cold take.
Nah, definitely the conservative of this show. There's no doubt about that. All right, so I did some parlays too for this weekend. I wanted to see what you thought about these. So these are FanDuel parlays, and they're just simple ones. Now we both live in New York, so now that they're legal in New York, we're kind of messing around with these, and wanted to see what you thought of these. I am not very confident in winners of the games this week and picking winners, so I did more same game parlays on the players. So I wanted to know what you thought of Derrick Henry and Jamar Chase both having touchdowns at a plus 299 parlay for this week. Thoughts? Do you see that happening, or is this not one you would do?
Oh, I like that. If Derrick Henry's playing, like I think that's solid, and Jamar Chase is his go-to. No, I like that. And would you say that's at 299?
Yes.
So almost plus 300.
Mhm.
I like it.
Do you like that one better, or do you like a same game parlay for touchdown scorers, Cooper Cup and Rob Gronkowski? So your choices here are Derrick Henry and Jamar Chase as a
Ooh.
parlay, or Cooper Cup and Rob Gronkowski. I based this off of 4 different parlays for 4 different games.
I'm gonna say the Derrick Henry one just because I think once they get in the red zone, it's definitely going to him.
Okay. Also for that parlay too, just messing around too, I spent a few bucks and did the Derrick Henry at 2 touchdowns for 330. I could really see him getting into the end zone twice for the same reason. The Bengals defensive line is absolutely banged up, and Henry is going to want to prove a point here. And believe me, I think he's going to destroy them this weekend. Not saying it won't be a competitive game, but he is going to get his, and there's no reason he may get into the end zone twice. Thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. And everyone knows the Titans really need Derrick Henry. That's why it was such a big deal that they got that first round bye
Mm-hmm.
and could get by another. Because honestly, I don't know if they would have won this past weekend playing some of these teams without him. So it's very crucial that they get him back and get him to work.
Okay, and then the last parlay that I have, I do believe that the Packers are going to win pretty comfortably this weekend. I think the 49ers coming up to Lambeau in 0-degree weather is going to affect them. They're already dealing with injuries on offense. So I've got Green Bay money line, but I've also got Deebo Samuel scoring a touchdown and Devontae Adams scoring a touchdown. So this would be a 3-part parlay, and this is at plus 447. Do you think this is likely, or would you look elsewhere?
No, I think that's a solid bet. I think Green Bay wins it as well. It's easy to forget that the 49ers almost dropped that game against Dallas.
They did.
Allowed 10 points in the fourth quarter almost, and Dallas was knocking on the door. If that would have been like a minute and 14 seconds, they would have been in trouble. So betting on Deebo to get a touchdown's never a bad bet. And
No,
then
absolutely not.
Devontae Adams is just Devontae Adams.
So if you had to rank these 3, specifically not the Derrick Henry 2 touchdown one, that one's a little bit more out there, I think. Which ones do you like the most? Do you like the one during the Packers game, the Ram and Tampa game, or the Bengals and Titans game parlay?
I think I'm going to say Deebo and Devontae.
Even with the
like
Green Bay Packers money line?
Yep. I think I like that one the most. And then after that would be the Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase. And then after that would be the Gronk and who is with Gronk?
With Gronk, I had Cooper Cup.
Cooper Cup and Gronk would be my third one, but those are all solid parlays.
Is there any parlays you wanted to share with the heckling fandom, or did you want to go to court?
No, we didn't go to court. I didn't really look at too many parlays yet.
All right, Mr. Warner, let's go to court. Well, we were going to have a Democratic court until Ron Seymour decided not to show up today, him going back into special guest status as opposed to host status. So this is going to be more of a dictatorship where you are going to be the prosecutor laying out your favorite of these decisions in front of me. And then I'm going to tell you if you made a good enough argument for it. So you're going to lay out the summaries for it, okay, for these rules, and tell me what's your favorite out of these categories, all right?
What's my favorite rule? Or what's my least favorite?
This is our court. You can do whatever you want with it, okay?
All right, hit me.
All right, so for the first case in Fantasy Football Rules Court today, you have to choose, Mr. Prosecutor, to back waiver wire worst record, fab, or waiver wire scrolling. Give me a description of these, why someone should implement these in their leagues, and which one's your favorite. And me, as the non-corrupt judge from a dictatorship country, will tell you if it's a good choice.
All right. So as far as reverse order waivers, that can just go out the window. I hate it. So basically what that does is at the end of each week, whatever team has the worst record has the first pick, and it goes backwards from there. I think that's crap. You're just rewarding teams that are doing better. And also, it resets every week. So if you're a team that chooses to take a week off from picking up anybody, you don't get any benefit from it.
Right.
And if you win, you just are going to keep sliding, even though you didn't jump in and take a free agent that week. So I hate reverse order waivers. Next up, you have Fab. That is where everyone in the league bids on free agents, and the highest bidder gets that free agent. And typically, there's a budget, so around like $100 for the season. And then next up is rolling waivers, which is a rolling list. I don't know how it's determined initially, but then as you pick up players, you drop to the bottom. Like if you just picked up one, then now you're last, and it keeps kind of going through. So
Right.
that way, if you take a week off, you move up. Personally, I really like the rolling waivers. I think the Fab is difficult. Prices can be run up on players. I know a lot of more competitive fantasy leagues do like Fab. They think it keeps it more competitive. Everyone has the same chance to get the same player. Mainly my issue is I'd run out my money way too fast. So I just like the rolling waivers. Also, in my one Fab league, you have to bid on them even after waivers clears, which is just the biggest pain ever. So my vote is for rolling waivers.
All right. So, Prosecutor Warner, tell the sham of a court why you still would initiate that over Fab. I understand that maybe you can't control your money, but why can't other people? Like, what's the reasoning behind that? Just because you're not good at it, you don't think other people should try it out?
Yeah, I'm being a little selfish there. As far as the ultimate competitiveness, everyone having the same shot as a player, it would be Fab. The only time where you may get hung up with that is if there are people that just don't participate. It it can get lopsided a little bit, but and then whereas rolling waivers would just keep the list going regardless. Um, so honestly, either one of those is way better than reverse order waivers.
The court will accept your arguments and accept scrolling waivers as the ultimate vindicator
Yes.
on that for the reason that the winner league is an auction league, and instituting basically another auction league within an auction league is quite frustrating when I don't want to do the initial auction to begin with. So the court accepts your argument and moves on to the next case.
Yes. One for one and oh.
All right, so now the courts are setting in front of you whether you should be going for an extra flex spot in your league, already having one, or if teams should consider doing a super flex league, two quarterback system. Which one is your favorite, and which one should the court consider?
Ooh. So basically two fluxes or a flux and a super flux.
Yes.
I like super I like hmm. Ooh, that's hard. So I like the two fluxes more, just because it opens it up to more players. Super flux you could do anybody as well. Um, so actually, I'm gonna change my answer. I think I like super flats. Makes the quarterbacks I think a lot more valuable, whereas typically you can get by just having one or two. It definitely makes it more competitive. You have to allot more roster spots to quarterbacks than what you would do typically, instead of just holding one and then pitching one up for the bye week. Um, so I'm gonna say super flats.
Prosecutor Warner, this court is not convinced yet. You're going to have to give me a little bit more evidence here. The court is looking at this case and looking at Superflex, considering that you don't really have to be that skilled to play in a Superflex league. There's 32 starting quarterbacks in a league, so you need one, and then the
Ooh.
skill level of them significantly drops off after. Where with a regular flex league, you have to actually consider what you're going to play that week, whether that be a stronger and potential wide receiver or someone who's a little bit more solid at the running back position, or you're going to go real crazy and play a tight end. So try to convince me a little bit more because I don't believe it
You
yet.
know, I think you convinced me. Screw super flats. You're right. It doesn't. You can just go in and take. I don't know, like somehow if you manage to get Brady and Lamar in the same draft or something insane. Um, especially if you only have like a 10-man lead, it's very likely you're going to get 2 or 3 people that have top 15 running backs both on their team. So I switched my stance. I'm going flats. I think it's harder to find value at the other positions to beat out other people.
This Shady Court is very happy that you have changed your stance on that for the reason that the Shady Court is trying to stop the corruption of superflex leagues where people will draft 3 and 4 quarterbacks and leave other people with nothing when other quarterbacks get injured. So this court accepts the decision that you have made because it is definitely not the one I would have made on my own. As you are 2-0 right now. So,
Yes.
Mr. Prosecutor, are you ready
Killing
for your third and final case?
Yes.
All right. So now, Mr. Prosecutor, sitting in front of you is a choice between the auction league and the good old-fashioned snake draft. So what is your preference? This is a specialty show where we do typically do a lot of auction league, but I want to know your personal preference. And if you don't get it wrong, maybe I won't send you to the gulag.
Listen, everyone knows I love a good old snake draft, all right? You know exactly where you're picking. It's better to plan out when people are going, and you can kind of guess what players are going to be coming up. So big fan on the snake draft. And auction draft, on that side, it's definitely harder. You have to be better at allocating your money, knowing the values of players, making sure you don't overpay. It's also easier to screw over people, though, because you do drive prices up on players, make them go through their money quicker.
It is true, and the court likes the strategy of that. Good point.
Yes. So that's like one of my favorite things to do. I did it to a couple people this past season. So that that is enjoyable. But I still lean towards the snake draft.
So the court again is still not satisfied with your answer. You kind of were making the case on the other end of this that there's a lot more strategy involved with the auction draft, especially when you're playing keepers too. Something else we didn't mention. If you do a league a little bit more than 1 year in a row, the auction league is interesting because you can bid up for the players that you want and build your teams the way you want. You don't necessarily just have to draft in the same format that everyone would do with the snake draft. So it sounds like the court is trying to give you the correct answer, but you're just not taking the bait. So would the prosecutor like to reassess his position on this?
In case you haven't noticed, my last 2 decisions, I lean towards the easier option for players. But I guess that is the biggest thing. If you're looking for if you want a casual league, like where you guys kind of watch football casually, like you're not super into it, you just want to hang out, play fantasy football, then the way to do it would be snake draft, rolling waivers. But if you're looking for a competitive league, keep everybody close, then auction league with fab would be the way to go.
Again, Mr. Prosecutor, stop going over the middle. What is your final choice?
My final choice, I will go auction league because I've been doing it a while now. You guys have forced me to get into it and get comfortable with it. So I will go auction league. But there is one more topic of it's not so much a rule. It's more like a lead setting situation. Is in one of our leagues, there's this BS rule where third place gets nothing. Absolutely nothing.
This court might have to hold you in contempt. You're going right out of the argument. But continue. Go ahead.
In what other situation does third place get nothing? The Olympics, third place gets something. He gets a bronze medal.
Second loser.
He gets a little thanks for coming. Look at even on my phone, I googled winners podium. Look at that. How many spots do you see on Google? In all of them.
Prosecutor Warner, I see 3.
All 3.
Are you submitting that as evidence?
Yes, there is not a single photo of just first and second. Nowhere. So, listen, pay your third place players. Pay them, not pay them a lot, like the buy-in amount. Don't be like our other league that pays fourth place to buy in and then all that. But
pays. I didn't know they paid in that league.
Yeah. Eventually. But it's just blasphemy that you're just gonna kick third place to the curb, not give them anything. So not only do they not get their buy-in, they also get a shit draft position if it's a snake, and it's just ridiculous.
This court was considering holding you in contempt for avoiding the auction versus snake draft strategy here, but does really like the shady content of you switching up the situation here. And as it says, a shady court will accept your answer of a non-answer, and we'll move on. Now we are moving into another format of the rules, which is the actual rules format of this, not necessarily the format of the Fantasy Football League, but things that you can consider for your league and vote on too. So I want to hear a yay or a nay from you, and this will determine, as I said, whether I'm throwing you in jail today or not. What is your thoughts? I was reading of a rule today, and this is a pretty extreme one, of eliminating the last place person from your league for an entire year after they get last place. Is this a good rule, or is this just way too extreme, even in punishment leagues?
Ouch. I think
also known as the survivor rule.
So I guess it depends. If you're in a league with buddies and friends, and you got a group of friends that you do fantasy football with, then you don't want to kick one of your friends out every year, because then you got to find someone new that you might not even really like, and then they got to come in. And but if you're someone that just has a league full of randos and you don't care who else gets in it after, then sure. But for me, all of my leads are with friends or friends of friends or family. So I like it being the same people every year.
So this is a nay for you?
Yep, nay.
Yeah, also for the reason, too, if the commissioner happens to get last place, which in our league, Ron Seymour, it's potentially possible for him to. That's probably not a good way to do it, too. So we are not going to be playing the survivor rule in the winner or dynasty league. So also the judge says nay on this one, too. Next one. Do you believe in early trade deadlines so people aren't pushing players away before playoffs? Or do you encourage that people make trades before deadlines? And you can put this in any format you'd like, maybe for dynasty specifically, because I think that would more affect a dynasty or a keeper league.
Yeah, so dynasty, I liked the idea of you just being able to trade the whole time, because you're not going to want to dump your good players to help someone else out, because you're going to have that team next year. Like, you're going to have that whole team. So I think that will really prevent people from making those kind of decisions. As far as in redraft leads, auction leads, things of that nature, I do think your trade deadline's a good thing, because if you have a team that's out of the playoffs versus a team that's heading in, what's the team that's out of the playoffs? They're not going to gain anything. They're not going to lose anything. They don't have anything. So what's to stop them just from hooking their buddy up, or I don't know, getting bribed or whatever? But dynasty, there's actual like prolonged repercussions for them doing that.
True.
But on the flip side, then you could argue there shouldn't be a trade deadline, because if they do stupid shit like that, then they're going to be dealing with it for the next 3-4 years.
That's right. They're going to be the Detroit Lions of your league, and I like that point.
Right.
It's all right to have a Detroit of your league.
So screw it, man. Keep them open the whole time.
So keep it open in dynasty, but limit it in just regular redraft leagues?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll move on to our next one, too. Should people not be allowed to trade for the same player twice in one season?
No, I could see situations where that could happen, where, like, for example, you traded me Jalen Waddle for Robert Woods, and then Robert Woods went down with an injury. Jalen Waddle was kind of coming up. What if I was in a situation where I somehow had better wide receiver options than Waddle at that point, and now you're really hurting because Woods just got injured,
Yeah. I'm so real happy for that trade that it worked out for you.
Yeah.
And I potentially gave you a keeper.
I could see situations where that should be allowed.
Okay. All right. And what's your thoughts on, so yay for that one. On the next one, what's your thought of maybe potentially implementing a 1.5 for points per catch for tight ends? So putting more of a premium on that position for a position that potentially doesn't catch a lot and isn't very important to fantasy football beyond the first top 4 guys.
That's the thing, is I feel like if you did that, the gap from those top 4 versus everybody else would just widen immensely. And basically, like, if you have those top 4 guys, you're probably going to win the league or be in the or be the ones that are in the playoffs.
But would that not make it more interesting should you have that extra flex spot in your league?
Maybe. I just think, I mean, could you imagine if, like, Kelsey was getting 1.5 points for every reception? Or, like, the gap would just be
You mean
insane.
if
I think it would take
Tommy could have played him and Gronkowski with 1.5 receptions?
Yeah, like, I just think that it would make that gap massive, and it would take away from the competitiveness of the league.
Okay. And speaking of things that do absolutely nothing for fantasy football leagues, do you think it's smart to banish kickers from fantasy football? Go for other positions instead?
So, no, I love having the kickers in there, like, because
Really?
I think it's hilarious when a kicker determines an outcome because it's so random. Like, I just think it's so funny, and that's just another thing that makes it more competitive because that's just one more spot that could either make you or break you. So I think it's hilarious, and I love kickers being in there.
See, this is an interesting one because we have two leagues. In one league, we have kickers. That's our dynasty league. But in the other one, we don't use kickers. And I think I thoroughly enjoy the fact that we don't use kickers in that because I understand that football is unpredictable and there's definitely a factor in it. But who the hell wants to be skilled, play well, and then get screwed by a kicker right at the end? Or by a defensive, which is outscoring you by 20 points, which has happened in our league because
It's fantasy
defense,
football, man.
it is. It's completely randomized and stuff. But I don't think kickers really have a place in fantasy football, so I think I'm against with you on this one.
No, man, I love it, especially if you have kickers that like regularly just nail those 50-yarders. I think it's freaking awesome.
Okay, so let's go. Let's talk about one that I know you're just absolutely going to love. What do you think about waiver fees for people who like to make a lot of waiver moves? Maybe $1 every single waiver move.
I hate it.
Suggested by TJ in our league.
I hate it. So, as someone that makes a ton of waiver moves, I don't
You
want to
don't
be
feel like
paying
you
every
should be
time
punished for it?
because like everyone has the same opportunity to get those people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think especially if you're doing fab, you're already losing virtual money, like you're already paying for it. And then in rolling waivers, you're giving up position. So like
Yeah.
there's already a give and a take there. And I don't know, man. I'm poor. I already spent too much money on fantasy football.
So you don't like the pool getting larger so you can give it to first and second place?
Listen, if you want to institute $1 fees and pay third, then you got me.
That will not get my vote this year, but I'm sure it's going to come up in the league meeting. All right, next one I want to talk about. What do you think about awarding money for high score of the week? Do you like it, or do you think it should stick strictly to the pool of winning money in the playoffs?
And that's where they kind of start to overlap because I think if you're going to start paying high scorers of the week and things like that, you do have to have a pool of money to come from. And where you would get that would be if you were charging for waiver pickups and things of that nature. I think if you're negating it just from the pool from buy-ins, then you're just taking away how much people win if they actually win the league. So it kind of like isn't as much of a reward at that point. So if you're going to institute that rule, then I do think there would need to be some type of waiver fee or trade fee and things of that nature.
So not happening in our league. Got it. Next one. What about adding just strictly a COVID spot in addition to an injury reserve spot? Because this is something I wanted to do. And, Dictator Seymour, our commissioner, shot down this idea and does not like this. But I'm going to bring it up in the league meeting. What's your thought of just adding a strictly COVID spot and not just a one spot designated for COVID/IR?
I like it just because the world we live in now, a guy could be put out for 3 days and then be back on. And it's like, I know in my other league, we did add an IR spot for that reason. So we had 2 IR spots. And it definitely helped. And it's tough because, I mean, I know at one point I had like 4 or 5 players that had COVID or were on short-term IR due to COVID. And with the new IR rules, teams are way more likely to throw them on there. And it was very hard to be able to still start a team and actually win when so many of your players are out due to COVID.
It was a giant pain in the ass. Next, let's get into some stat-driven rules and get your thoughts on these for people maybe looking to implement different lineups for their leagues. So, what's your thoughts on half PPR for leagues? My thoughts on half PPR is it kind of negates the shitty screen passes where somebody gets a full point for catching a pass for a yard. So it doesn't completely reward for him, but you still get the implementation of the slot receiver who's going to catch a ton of passes, or the running back that gets out of the backfield like a Kamara, getting some points, but not getting rewarded for just absolute garbage work. What's your thoughts on this? Or are you in more favor of full point PPR or no PPR?
I love the full point PPR. I love, they caught the ball. They're doing something. It counts.
But is it really?
Yeah, I'm taking it. And it all balances out, I think, because it's not like you're gonna have a player that catches 9 passes for 2 yards. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna get the yardage.
Sounds like something Brandon Ayuk could do.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a few plays here and there. I think non PPR is just insanity.
No, I think you need to, put the cane up and go to the old folks' home if you're still doing like that, and like give up the rotary phone. Like that is just so old traditional fantasy football.
And because receptions count. So yeah, I still love the full PPR, but it's also worth noting I am a Patriots fan where it's all those short passes over and over, and I pick up their players, and I'm all about it.
So what you're saying is this prosecutor may have a little bit of bias in this case.
Yeah, just a little, and I think it helps even out. It makes a lot more wide receivers valuable than just the big play wide receivers, but the big play wide receivers still keep a lot of value.
Okay. And what's your thoughts on points formats for quarterbacks being 6 points for the quarterback, but for negative 3 points for interceptions? Are you more in favor of 4-point format?
So
with no penalty for interceptions.
I had actually never thought of this until someone in my league that I was commissioner of brought it up. So I had always just assumed 6 points for quarterback touchdowns, throwing, running, whatever. But he felt that when you do 6 point touchdown passes, you take away a lot of the value that comes with rushing quarterbacks.
It's true.
I think rushing quarterbacks still get a ton of value just in the yardage, but I did see the point that he was making. So I think I could support 4-point passes and 6-point rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks. I could see that. And then as far as interceptions, I still think -2. -2 is good, whether it's 4 points or 6 points for touchdowns.
Okay, so you're just keeping along the lines of the traditional 4 then, as opposed to bumping it right up to the 6 with 3. You still kind of get the same point formula for that, but someone who throws 2 interceptions and goes unnoticed for 17 weeks, Kirk Cousins, looks pretty good there. But someone who throws a shitload of picks, like I don't know, Trevor Lawrence, doesn't look so good.
Right. Even if you manage to throw for like 300 yards, which I don't think he ever did, but
no,
it negates it a bit.
Okay. And are you in favor of divisions or no divisions?
So I don't like divisions. I think it makes it a shit show with the seeding as we came into in our league.
Led to a big argument.
I just prefer everyone it's just one big division. Everybody plays everybody.
One big fucking happy family.
Yep. And it's just 1 through 6 gets in, 1 and 2 get buys, and then 3 plays 6 and 4 plays 5.
Would you be interested in a format like top 5 get in? Like, all right, so say 10 or 12 team format, 6 get in, maybe top 5 get in, but then maybe someone who's got best differential on high score and points scored against them getting in? Or do you think it should just be top 6 seeds?
I get the argument for top 5 get in, and then the most points for gets in. Just because like last year I was 0-4, but had the most points in the league. It's like freaking how. So it just comes down to the luck of fantasy football, and that would hedge that a little bit, I think. So I would support top 5 and then highest scorer after that.
All right. So now let's talk about keepers specifically. What is the right number of keepers you think in the league? Should people implement keepers? And specifically for two different formats. For the snake, should those keepers make you lose the rounds that you drafted them in, that you're keeping them in? And should there be a value in auction leagues? And this is a fucking long question. Should free agents not be allowed in keeper formats? Just go over the whole subject for me.
Yeah. So I like keepers. I'm all about that. As far as snake draft goes, I am for they are a keeper and where you drafted them, except like, and I don't even know how often it is, but if you manage to get a guy off waivers or you drafted a dude in like the 12th round who is sometimes insane, I
Yeah.
think the latest a keeper should be allowed to be is like round 8. I think that's fair.
So if
Um,
someone was genius enough to draft them late, you think they should be penalized for that?
Not penalized, but also like to keep it competitive in future years. Um,
Why?
and
Because you were a loser that didn't draft so well? That doesn't make
yeah,
sense to me. I don't like
and
that.
well, and you're acting like round 8 super early. Like round 8 is still pretty far down the game. As far as auction lead,
Well,
I did.
your team found Tom Brady in the 6th round. Should they be penalized and not get a first round pick because they found Tom Brady in the 6th round? I don't like that.
Well, that the NFL doesn't do that at all. That's not a thing.
Okay, anyway, yeah, this is your fantasy rule. So go ahead.
Um, as far as keepers, I did some research on this one. I like the idea of you keep them for the value that you got them the first year.
Mhm.
Um, and then just because auction with money, it's so hard. I think you should add money to the value for each consecutive year after that if you let them keep them for more than a year. So, like the first year, you keep them for what you drafted them. The second year, it's whatever you drafted them for plus 10. And then
Mhm.
I think you just add $10 to the previous year each year. Because,
Okay.
for example, like I got Jonathan Taylor, I was able to keep him at $6. Like, I probably should not be able to keep him at $6 for 3 years, you know?
Yeah, and then mind you, this is on a $200 budget too. This is the budget our league implements. And
Right.
most do, I
So,
think, too.
which is the same thing you were talking about with the snake, though, is like, if I mean, I don't know what Jonathan Taylor went for as rookie year or whatever, but
Mhm.
like, if you got someone like that in the 12th round, like, you probably shouldn't be able to keep them in the 12th round for every year. Like,
Should you be able to keep the free agents that you picked up that were potentially injured and someone else dropped? Is that a strategy you can play in keeper leagues, or do you think people shouldn't be allowed to do that?
no, I'm fine with that, and I think keep waiver wire pickup should just be $1,
Okay.
and then it would just go to the other way where you then pay $10 after that.
All right. And the last yay or nay that I've got for you tonight is the last place penalty. So, first off, do you believe in the last place penalty? And if someone's not looking for something so extreme like going to stay in a Waffle House for 24 hours or doing a comedy show for 5 minutes or doing something absolutely embarrassing like getting tomatoes thrown at you in a backyard or something, what do you feel about the last place person potentially just throwing in extra money for losing and being the shittiest at fantasy football in the year, like an extra like penalty that goes to the winning pool?
Yeah, so I actually thought a lot about this, and I'm going to incorporate it with my other situation I'm very passionate about. If
Mhm.
you're in a league that refuses to pay third place, maybe the last place player should have to pay the third place player whatever their buy-in amount was. I think that gives. I think that A, that pays third place like they should be. B, it gives incentive not to come in last place. Um,
Keeps
and
it competitive.
it'll keep people fighting all year long.
So I've got a feeling you're probably going to ask for something similar then in the Dynasty League.
Oh, it's going to come up. It is going to come up.
Do you have some favorite punishments that you've seen online or things that you'd like for people to vote into the leagues?
Well, so I like mine the most just so that third place gets paid. I think the Waffle House one is freaking hilarious.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's what I've seen the most, but there's got to be something for last place. I think it keeps it fun. It's all in good fun as long
I've
as you're not
seen
doing something crazy.
I've seen Nick Ursulano's fantasy league. They've done some funny as hell ones. Like they had one guy, I think his name was Animal. He had to go stay in the woods for like 16 hours. So that's a little bit more extreme. And he recorded what happened during it. So that was funny as shit. And I think this year one of them has to be a bathroom attendant at a bar all night. They're allowed to keep the money that they get tipped. You'll see
That's
other
so funny.
things. Yeah, you'll see other things too, like people get the penalty of automatically getting the last pick in a snake draft, or having to host the party and buy all the food and serve everyone. So there's a lot of varieties to last place punishments.
I think all those are amazing.
Yeah, no, freaking hilarious. Don't know if they would fly in Winter League because we're not close enough to everyone, but freaking hilarious. And if you got a close net group of friends, that is just another way to keep it competitive and people not wanting to get last place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other rules you wanted to talk about, Ryan, before we get out of here tonight?
There is one other rule that came up that was an issue in our dynasty league specifically.
Go ahead.
But there was an issue that arose in winner a little bit as well, and I'll ask for your thoughts on this.
Sure.
So it's a two-parter. Should there be a penalty for people that consistently? So I'll ask the first question: that consistently or intentionally don't start players who either aren't paying attention, so they're not adjusting their lineups, or the B side would be to intentionally tank for maybe a better playoff position.
So the strategy of tanking for a better playoff position, that is a strategy. And in Dynasty, I think it's a viable strategy. So no, I've got no issue with that. Not starting players because you're not paying attention, and that is something that you can see, I think should lead to an initial warning. And should that happen similarly again, then it leads to someone getting kicked out of a league. So hopefully that doesn't happen again this year. I know what you're alluding to with that. But no, I believe tanking is a legitimate strategy and was also
Thank you.
It is. And I've got nothing against it because there's no sportsmanship in fantasy football, guys. You're trying to win money and get into the playoffs. Guess what? That goes right out the window when you're playing for that playoff spot. So I've got no issue not starting for someone. As long as you have something in that spot, it's not an issue. It's just part of the game. And if you're not good enough to get into the playoffs on your own record, that's not someone else's responsibility to put you into the playoffs.
Right. Yep. Hit the nail on the head. That's my thoughts exactly. If you have, I think the league really goes to crap if you don't have everyone actively participating, and that's why it's so concerning if you have people that kind of die off at the end of a season. It's not fair to the players that had to play that person earlier in the season when they were paying attention and may have lost. And it just kind of boosts the records of everybody that plays them after. And then as far as the tanking, I completely agree. I think that is a strategy. People might not like it if it affects them, but unfortunately, all is fair in love and fantasy football.
I really like how you used the last 5 minutes to really get that grudge out of your system and used it as a stage. The rules episode is your stage to get the grudges out. So, guys, we are Garbage Time Fantasy Football, and we thank you for watching again tonight. You can like and subscribe to the show here on YouTube. Listen to us anywhere you got podcasts, Spotify, Google, Iheartradio, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get podcasts, you can listen to us too. I would say we have a comment here on the side, but that is just a bot, so we are not going to worry about that too. Ryan, tell them about what's going on this weekend in MMA, and then we'll get our asses out of here.
Yeah, so tomorrow there will be a UFC 270 preview. We will cover fight pits, maybe get some DFS stuff in. We'll definitely be getting some bet things in. There are some cards there are some that are heavy favorites. We got a few toss-up matches. So it's going to be a tough one for DFS. You're going to have a lot of really expensive people, and it's going to be a matter of picking the right one. We do have 2 title fights. You have Fiji versus Moreno for the rubber match. The first match ended in the draw. Second match ended with Moreno getting the submission win. So now Fiji is trying to get his revenge. And then the main event, you got Francis Ngannou, the current heavyweight champ, versus Cyril Gane, the current heavyweight interim champ. Former sparring partners, an awesome bat story.
Ready to beat the shit out of each other.
Ready to frickin' rumble. 2 amazing fighters. A very close fight on paper, and the Vegas odds are showing that. So tune in to hear my thoughts on that. I'm sure JJ will have his opinions and voice them very loudly. And
maybe Casey.
Maybe Casey will make an appearance. We'll have to see.
All right, real quick. Who are the winners of the games this weekend?
Ooh, winners of games. So I am going to take. It kills me to say this. I'm going to go Buffalo over Kansas City,
Okay.
even though I don't want to. I'm going to say Packers over the 49ers.
Okay.
I'm going to say the Buccaneers over the
Rams.
And then I am going to say the Packers. No, the Titans. Ooh, Titans Bengals is the hardest one for me, man.
Mm-hmm.
Can I put a caveat on if Derrick Henry's starting or not?
Sure.
All right, Derrick Henry starting. I'm going Titans. If Derrick Henry's not there, it's going to be the Bengals.
So there's absolutely no parity with this. I completely agree with the other three. I've had someone at work, interestingly enough, say they're big on the Rams winning this week. They think that they're more talented at all positions. They are. They're not wrong, but the only issue with that is they're not talented at one more position that is the most important position on the field, which is the quarterback position. And old smoothie drinking Tom Brady is on that side of the field, and he just plays an overdrive in the playoffs, and it doesn't fucking matter what happened in the regular season. He just has your numbers. So I also agree with the Bucs winning, Green Bay winning, and Buffalo, I believe, will actually beat the Chiefs this weekend. Don't count them out. But actually, I think the Titans are going to really bring the Bengals back down to earth and steamroll them if Derrick Henry plays. They're missing defensive linemen. I think they're going to get out physical in this game. So look for that to be your championship games. Titans and Bills and Packers and Bucks to determine who goes to the Super Bowl. And with that, Ryan, go ahead.
We're good. No, we're all good, man.
All right, fuck it. Let's get out of here. Good night, guys. Join the Heckling Fandom. We'd love to hear from you and follow us through the offseason.